Welcome to From Small Towns to Global Stages, a think tank media podcast. Hosted by Dru Daniels, this show explores the journey from local beginnings to global opportunities in the world of events, blending real stories, industry insight, and the human side of building a career. Start small, show up big. Here we go.
Hello, awesome people, and welcome back to From Small Towns to Global Stages. So as always, I am Dru, your host, and today we have Miss Jamie Martin joining us. So let's go ahead and get started and get right into it. So after some light LinkedIn research, as well as having a conversation with you, Jamie, it looks like you've been in the industry for 15 years now, so well experienced, and you currently serve as the Director of Conference and Event Services at the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which after I did a little more research on that one specifically, it was listed as an international company, but talking to you, you're specifically on the domestic side, correct?
Correct. We're domestic events, but we do have international constituents.
Awesome. All right. So could you kind of walk us through a high level overview of what you do there, just like a day-to-day type?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of my role, I oversee our team, and we mainly focus on our conference, which is about 8,000 attendees. And every year it's a little bit different in a different location. So we travel around with the team as well as the academy itself to put on the education. And then we have an expo side as well. So that is pulling that meeting together with the team is really the main focus of what my job is. And then we also have a good amount of smaller events, whether it's smaller committee or board meetings to larger symposiums that the team puts together, and we review the contracts, and depending on what needs to be done, we also sometimes facilitate those meetings as well.
Awesome. So it sounds like you do a conglomerate of a bunch of different things. And so you've got kind of your hand in a lot of different events and different sized events. So that's super cool too. So now I want you to kind of take a step back and kind of look back at your career as a whole and just kind of walk us through how you ended up in this position and where did you fall into the industry? Did you pursue the industry? Different things like that.
Yeah, and I really love this topic because I think it's so interesting to see how people get started. And, a lot of times people want to jump, some people know exactly what they want to do, and they go right for it, and other people fall into it. So that is really interesting to see, what people's trajectory is. I guess I was a little bit of both, but so when I started off, went to Salisbury University, started there. And then after college, I had a really hard time with the economy not doing well and really getting a footing. So I did a lot of different jobs here and there, and ultimately volunteered for a year internationally, and then came back and moved to Chicago and started in the hotel industry. So I started on actually human resources and got my foot in the door. I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do forever, but I learned so much, and it's actually continues to help me in my professional career. So I think, along the way, whether you are not sure or exactly what you want to do, just all of those little pieces along the way really can help and build out later when you don't even realize that they can fall back on them and look at that as a building block.
Yeah, that's cool. Volunteering internationally for a year, that's amazing.
Yes.
So how would you say that influenced and helped you in your industry now?
Yeah, I think in terms of that piece of it, it was definitely, living there, and then I lived with other volunteers, and it was very similar to the Peace Corps. It was called Passionate Volunteers International. So it was living with the community, but really I learned Spanish fluently, and it was very much project oriented in terms of what you wanted to get involved in. And so we had my foot in a few different projects that were going on. And I do love that international piece, but I think more importantly, loved learning about different cultures, learning about different people. And that's something that I continue to just anywhere you go, it's fun to get to know people. And that's, some of that takeaway.
Yeah, I would say that's a huge part of being in the hospitality events industry. You've got to be a lover of people, or I just feel like it's not going to work out well.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. Going back a little bit again on that time that you spent in HR. So how exactly has that kind of prepared you for where you're at now, like planning these huge events with a bunch of different people, whether it's regular on staff or like contractors or volunteers and things like that? How has that helped you like manage those things?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was very much for me, like my first foray into having to dress up, very professionally every day and really be that authoritative figure too of people would look to you in terms of the policies. And so I think that that's helped more so on the management side with having a
Mhm.
team, than being able to fall back and being able to say, okay, well, you agreed to this, or these are the expectations, and not trying to take things personally, because really it comes down to people can be great people, but they just might not be good at what they're doing. And I think that that's also too just taking a look at your your career as well, in terms of leaning into what you're good at, what people keep on saying, great job with this, great job with that, but really taking a
Mhm.
look at those pieces, instead of just saying, well, I like this, but you might not be good at it. So
Yeah.
um, I think it's, a lot of it's trial and error. And I'm sure that people have heard that, that many times, in terms of failing is some of your best lessons. But I think that, so going back to the HR piece of it, being able to see other people in those positions coming in, whether we were supporting them with trainings or, it just was a really good, like, broad perspective of management and what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it was, especially translating that to events and everything that like goes into planning an event and the whole staffing aspect of it. So, would you say like if you compared that to, I guess, like just go ahead and going straight into industry, would you say that really helped set you up for success? Like even though you didn't go on the traditional path of straight into the hospitality sector, like you started out in human resources, how did that kind of help you rather than like just jumping full force into the hospitality industry?
Yeah, well, I think that starting on the hotel side in general, so looking at it from that lens of it was a hotel, that being the vendor side, whereas now I'm more at the client side. I think that
Mhm.
I went from HR, so into was able to also get more contacts and talk to people about what I wanted to do and what I thought that I wanted to do. And so I would say that then I went over to the banquets and catering side,
Mhm.
and had experience within the hotel. And so it did prep me with, some of those basic company experiences and the management piece that I also mentioned. But it also provided a segue to get to know more people and to be able to, and I think that that's also a really important piece, is to be able to say, okay, this is not what I want to do forever, but I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm going to learn from it and gain the experiences that are provided in that moment of time. But then to be able to say, but this is my ultimate goal. So who around me can help support that? And so
Mhm.
ultimately, I ended up going on to do the catering and banquets side of it. And then from there, I was able to go on to an international meetings position, which was also a great experience, and just kept on progressing from there. So you really need, I think it's understanding the basics and getting that experience in every area that you are working is really helpful. So yeah, I don't know if that
Yeah. No,
completely
that makes
answers that.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. That made a lot of sense. You compiled a bunch from each aspect of the event industry that you've worked in and like been able to compile it to help you be beneficial to where you're at now. Which like that kind of leads me into another question of like what was it like transitioning? Like did skills and things that you learned from like your first job really transition and help you throughout the other ones? And like was it an easy transition or were there like roadblocks, different things like that? Like what was it like as you moved through your career?
Yeah, I think the transition, it's always interesting in terms of what your specific tasks are in the different jobs. So I think in terms of transitioning, it I learned to, I guess for the hotel side of it, I learned what needed to happen in terms of the staffing and a lot about the food and beverage and just like what happened in that meeting world. And then being able to translate to putting together orders of, okay, this is what we want. That was a really great transition for me personally. I think on a broader scope, that being able to hone in on what the specific requirements are for the job. And I think, in terms of meeting planning, being able to pause and take a look at the details is so critical. And a lot of people just want to skip over and just like get to the full blown fun of different meetings, which it is really fun and exciting. And it's always fun to be on site. Like that's my favorite thing to do. But there's so many details that go into everything. And if you skip one step, then a lot of times you're making up for it later on, or you're kicking yourself or having to rely on other people when it was your responsibility. So just being really able to take the ownership of what you're given is important, and being able to do that to, not saying that, it's so tedious, but just understanding
Mhm.
that everything builds upon itself. So if you do miss something, then later on your company could be paying for it, or there can be other repercussions that you just don't understand at the time.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. They always talk about that in class all the time of like the details and how much you need to be detail oriented on all those
Yeah.
things. But it makes a lot of sense. It's like you miss little things and then you have to somehow compensate for that later down the line. It's like, where are you compensating and what are you pulling from for all of those other things as well? So we kind of talked about all of your career trajectory, and it sounds like you didn't necessarily go into college with like a hospitality industry, like, this is what I want to do. So, what can you pull from like your college experience and what you learned in college through your major to be able to do what you do today? Is there any translation between what you pursued versus what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I pursued marketing, and I still love that creative aspect. I love working with the marketing teams and just what I really love is brainstorming and being able to say, okay, like this is the bigger picture of like where we want to get, and being able to collaborate and take other people's ideas of saying, maybe mine's not the best idea, but it gets us started. Um, so that is what I started off with, along with Spanish minor. And then ultimately, in terms of the hotel side, because of my Spanish too, I was helping to translate a lot. So that actually helped me get into my hotel experience career.
Yeah.
And so, being able to fall back on some of those other pieces of your education really just might help get your foot in the door in some way. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that, you know, there's so many different connections along the way. And it, yeah, I didn't get started as quickly as I wanted to, but found a path that ultimately turned into a career that I love.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it's cool, like being bilingual, like that's such another cool asset that you have that you're able to leverage when you're in different situations as well. And so, like, we're going to kind of go off of that. Like, how do you maintain a competitive edge and competitive advantage in your current job, or if you're looking for another job or potentially a promotion? Like, how do you position yourself that way?
Yeah, I think, that obviously there's a lot of competition out there, but I think that being able to be a team player and collaborative, and really keeping up with the latest trends and what's going on in the industry, whether it's the economy or, all of those pieces, just absorbing it, but then also being able to pass it along and be helpful to other people too. So it goes both ways of taking it in, but then being able to apply it and or pass along the knowledge that you have, is very helpful with just highlighting you as knowledgeable and also committed to wanting to learn. I think that that's a huge aspect of making somebody, you know, um, giving them a little bit of an edge against other people trying to get into the industry. So if you come
Yeah.
in as I know everything, and well, maybe you do in some capacities, but it doesn't have a good look and a good feel to a lot of other people.
Right, which makes a lot of sense. So, talking about that, like education and constantly wanting to learn, how influential would you say going to industry conferences are and going to do those learning sessions and things like that are at continuing to pursue your career?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about making the connections too. I mean, you can see it depends on what stage you are in your career. So when you are starting out, just being able to understand what opportunities are out there. There's a lot of great mentorship programs and or management, first time manager programs at different companies. And so maybe it is starting either whether it's a hotel or with a vendor partner. There's a lot of general contractor positions that you can start off with. So it doesn't have to be specifically a planner position. If you think that and know that that's what you want to do, maybe that's not where you start. But just getting that information and being able to talk about what the openings are, because a lot of it comes down to the availability and the timing and a little bit of luck in terms of getting that first position.
Yeah, I can definitely feel that. I totally understand what you mean as I'm like getting ready to jump onto the job market and just trying to make myself competitive in those situations. So talking about those connections again, like those mentorship opportunities, how influential are those mentors when you're pursuing a job or once you're even in the industry? Like, do you still reach out to your mentors that you've had or different things like that? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. I guess when I was early in my career, I personally didn't have mentors because I didn't know actually a lot about a lot of the different industry or associations that are out there on the different conferences. And so that was just a little bit to my disadvantage in terms of getting in this industry. But I think that was also, I didn't fully know that this was what I wanted.
Mhm.
But in terms of whether it's this industry, PCMA or MPI or ASAE, there's so many out there that do have good student programs. And so then going to those conferences, you can get even more information about what those, whether it's mentorship or other opportunities. But I would say that, in terms of influential, I think going in with and I've had a few different mentees, and they've all been wonderful. And it really is, it's nice to be able to have that connection. I think I would only say that you don't want to always go in saying like, oh, they're going to hire me or like I'm going to be like a temp or that kind of thing. It's more of a, let's learn from each other and I can pass along to what the openings are and what, but there are so many good connections and the mentors for the most part do want to help in whatever capacity that they can.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They always tell
Yeah.
us that in class as well, like go and talk to people, network, connect with people, reach out, find mentors, all of the things, like do all of the things that you can do. So as we kind of wrap up, I do have one final question for you. What is your biggest piece of advice regarding someone who's wanting to break into the event industry?
Yeah, I think you actually just mentioned it in terms of getting out there, not just sitting and trying to apply and apply. Because I feel like there's between now with the AI and like all of like there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of resumes that just get turned down continuously. But then if you have some kind of connection that can, for starting off, then can put your resume just a little bit higher than in terms of knowing somebody, even if they don't know your work super well. I think that is the best, really the networking piece, but that does come with getting out of your comfort zone a little bit and making an effort to go to some of those conferences. And just, I think that the, um, I would say in terms of just trying to get as many experiences as you can. Also keep an open mind that what you think that you might want initially, that it might change and not being so stuck on this is the only thing that I want. If
Mhm.
initially at least until you've worked in the position a little bit for, a few years, then you really know the work. Cause it's not all fun and games, um, but I do love what I do. And that's the piece that you that you come to understand is that you push through some of those pieces that are not as fun, and then you soak in the times that are more fun. And I think also just, you know, not settling for, in terms of one other piece of advice, in terms of not
Mhm.
settling, but not giving up. So if you feel like something is just not clicking and it's not right, then not just throwing in the towel, but being able to explore exactly what you don't like, and really trying to turn it a little bit more positive of, you know, what you do like, and trying to translate to that something else. So it really, there's so many different layers, but it really is about getting out there and giving it a try, and continuously growing. So
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Multiple pieces too. I love that. That was awesome. So that concludes it. Like, we are
all right.
wrapping up today, and I personally thought this was a great conversation. And it was a great conversation that can be translated across people that are breaking into the industry as well as those that are already in the industry. Because we should constantly be growing in all of those things and constantly pushing to be, in my opinion, our best selves. So thank you so much for your time today, Jamie. And as always, to all of you lovely people watching, don't forget to be the awesome and unique, authentically you person that you are. And I hope you all had a great time listening to this episode. So thank you so much. All right, bye.
Thanks for spending time with us on From Small Towns to Global Stages, part of Think Tank Media and Hospitality Nexus, a global human-first platform connecting the hospitality ecosystem in one place, like a career fair that never closes. Watch all episodes at hospitalitynexus.org. Wherever you're starting from, keep going and stay beautiful.